Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. America First with Sebastian Gorka today at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, one of the more colorful members of the Senate. And actually, when it comes to pressing people during committee hearings, whether it's judicial nominees or administration flacks, he's pretty good. Asks simple questions, and if he doesn't get an answer, he's a bit of a dog with a bone. I want an answer to my question, and if you can't answer my question, then that's instructive. If you won't answer my question, that's also instructive. Committee hearing the other day with Biden Deputy Energy Secretary David Turk. Young Turks, be free tonight. He wants to know about remember this? This was unfurled beginning of the year. Climate change experts, top men, $50 trillion we need to spend to get the American economy to carbon neutral. Okay.
It's a lot of money. You footing the bill for that, Dan?
$50 trillion, you say. Okay, well, that's fine. Now just do some splaining, do some climate change splaining, and tell us what we get for that $50 trillion, Mr. Secretary David Turk.
Percent of global emissions.
Yeah, but if you could answer my question, if we spend $50 trillion to become carbon neutral in the United States of America by 2050, you're the Deputy Secretary of Energy. Give me your estimate of how much that is going to reduce world temperatures.
So first of all, it's a net cost. It's what benefits we're having from getting our act together and reducing all of those climate benefits. We're seeing.
Let me ask again. Maybe I'm not being
country.
clear. If we spent $50 trillion to become carbon neutral by 2050 in the United States of America, how much is that going to reduce world temperatures?
This is a global problem, so we need to reduce our emissions, and we need to do everything we can.
How much, if we do our part, is it going to reduce world temperatures?
So we're 13% of global emissions.
You don't know, do you? You don't know, do you?
You can do the math. We need to.
You don't know, do you, Mr. Secretary?
So we're 13% of global emissions.
If you know, why won't you tell me?
If we went to zero, that would be 13%.
You don't know, do you? You just want us to spend $50 trillion. And you don't have the slightest idea whether it's going to reduce world temperatures. Now, I'm all for carbon neutrality, but you're the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Energy, and you're advocating we spend trillions of dollars to seek carbon neutrality, and you can't, and this isn't your money or my money, it's taxpayer money, and you can't tell me how much it's going to lower world temperatures? Or you won't tell me? You know, but you won't?
In my heart of hearts, there is no way the world gets its act together on climate change unless the U.S. leads.
Tell me how much it's going to reduce. You can't tell me. Either that or you won't.
Yeah, that's sort of what you're dealing with. One important point of pushback to Senator Kennedy. You're all for carbon neutrality? I'm not. That's just as specious as these $50 trillion pie-in-the-sky plans to bring Mother Nature to bend the knee before the great United States federal government. We had Patrick Moore on the show yesterday. Patrick Moore, the co-founder of Greenpeace. Recent riff he offered on carbon dioxide, CO2, and all this carbon neutrality dreck you hear from political hacks.
One of my missions is to turn on its head the idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant and somehow dangerous, when in fact it is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth, and without it this would be a dead planet. So I say not only is carbon dioxide good, it is essential, and it's a good thing that we are putting some more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because it was running low before we came along.
CO2, we know its benefits for plants, but it is a known greenhouse gas, and we're pumping too much of it in, leading to global warming.
Well, actually, it may be a known greenhouse gas, but it's not known how strong it is in terms of changing the Earth's temperature. And so far in this century, there has been zero warming from a statistically significant basis, and the UK Met Office says so, Yet 1/3 of all human CO2 emissions have been put into the atmosphere in the last 18 years. So it doesn't look like a lockstep causal relationship between increasing CO2 and warming of the Earth.
But we'll go ahead and spend $50 trillion because we've decided that we believe this and there's nothing you can do to move us off this position. There is no amount of science and data. There's no amount of embarrassment. Give us what the outcomes will be. No, I'm not going to give you what the outcomes will be because I don't know. That's really the answer.
They move straight from COVID to this climate change.
This is what you're up against. And frankly, this is what the U.S. economy is up against. And frankly, this is what our future status as a free society is up against. For more on this and other matters financial, pleased to be joined by Jim Iuorio, host of the Future's Edge podcast and proprietor of Brandts Restaurant in Palatine as well. Jim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Dan. I wanted to correct Amy. We didn't go straight from COVID-19 to we stopped at the Ukraine war first, too, remember, before we got any information on that. Yeah, and then we stepped over to climate change. And I thought the Fed was going to already fix climate change by now. They gave them that responsibility a couple of years ago, I thought.
Yeah, and then John Podesta's going to backfill the work that Jay Powell and the mystics over at the Fed are doing with the $300 billion in funding money from the backdoor Green New Deal that was passed and signed into law by the big guy. Yeah, no, it's going well. Good down payment on that $50 trillion, Jim. You know.
Yeah, the thing that's so funny is that let's say for 1 second that they're totally right. Okay, which I mean, obviously clear doubts from very smart people. Let's say they're right, and let's say that carbon dioxide is affecting the planet. Do they don't have any realization of how much the entire globe's economic system depends on fossil fuel right now. And any disruption of that, blowing up one bridge before we've effectively built another bridge, is absolutely disruptive to the market. And it sounds like such a, like a distant thing when you say disruptive. In disruptive markets, people lose their jobs, economies collapse, things get very, very bad. So just that part of it alone, even if you agreed with them, their tact is ridiculous. Now the fact that we don't agree with them and that $50 trillion, just to put in perspective, 2 years ago I got that dreaded COVID-19. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was in all the papers. But anyway, I immediately went, you do. Oh, you do.
Yeah.
I immediately went and took that one drug that every news outlet and all these people were telling me I shouldn't take. This is where we've gotten to, is that everything they say, I'm always like, okay, what are you lying to me about and why? And this is kind of the same thing. And then you realize that the price tags that are attached to it, $50 trillion for starters just from our country, $120 trillion from the globe over the next 20 years or whatever it is. This is one of the biggest grifts in history. And the religious ideology that's behind it, and it's almost like because Jim, Dan, and Amy hate this plan, we love it even more just because it makes people on the other side mad, and that's where we've morphed to, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, there's no amount. I mean, when it comes to industrial policy, there's just no amount of persuading people. Even, for example, Lordstown Motors. This was something that was hyped by Trump. EV startup Lordstown Motors to replace the Chevy Cruise plant in Lordstown, Ohio, that was being shuttered. Trump made a big thing about that, berating GM. Well, Lordstown Motors now is not, despite all the subsidies and all the hype, is now on the precipice of filing for bankruptcy protection. But I'm sure the left would say, well, right, because that was Trump's industrial policy. We just need the right people making the right investments with other people's money, knowing better what those that actually operate in the private sector, in these in the private space in these sectors where there's real risk reward. They know better. So it's not the industrial policy that's the problem. It was just Trump made a wrong bet on Lordstown, even though I don't recall many Democrats saying that he was making a bad bet on Lordstown when he did.
Oh, amen. There's always a reason why things don't work. But I'd like to bring it to something. So if it was us in charge, and we really believed that decarbonization was the future, we'd create maybe some tax benefits to getting solar panels put on your house, and then keep those solar companies private, not necessarily subsidizing them. But notice that every plan now that the government has involves money going to the government and then having them distributed. There's far be it from them ever to put out a plan where within the free market they could provide some incentives to move towards solar. And solar, by the way, we've had some real high-end energy analysts on our podcast. Solar is the only thing that is even remotely interesting right now as far as moving away from fossil fuels. Which again, I'm not saying that we even should be moving away from fossil fuels, and that's one of the reasons I've been attracted to Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign is he's like, forget this. This is stupid. We're going fossil fuels and we're going hard. Which again, that's what I think is the right way to do at this point in time.
The regime has said, it continues to say, the banking system is safe and sound, and looks like PacWest is the next one to go down. Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan said the banking situation may well be more serious than we currently understand. Oh, really? You don't say?
So Jay Powell came out yesterday. He said he thinks everything is going to be okay, despite the fact that he has absolutely no reason to believe that. It's far too complex for even all the minds that are in the financial markets to figure out what banks are having the difficult times. Here we know. We've seen 4 cockroaches so far in a kitchen, and if to make the conclusion that that's all there is absolutely absurd. And the notion, it brings back when Jay Powell said that yesterday, the whole notion that they give guidance and transparency to what they think is going to happen over the next few months, despite the fact they've never shown an inclination to have any good grasp of what's going to happen over the next few weeks, let alone the next few months. It's so disingenuous and it's so almost toxic to lead the market to believe one thing when you have no idea why you're leading it there.
All right, since you're a restaurant owner, a bar owner, I'm sure you're familiar with what's going on with Anheuser-Busch. Last week, sales dropped 26%, the week before 21%. The previous week, 11%, because they, made that marketing blunder. How are Bud Light sales going at your place?
It's funny. Walt and I have been tracking it, and they are down. They were down substantially at first. They're still down some. Now, when you look at those numbers that you just read off, I want you to consider something else too. Mm-hmm. So many in the alcohol business. Bud Light is Anheuser-Busch is shipping to liquor stores and restaurants around the country, and those restaurants, it takes several weeks to notice trend changes. So all of a sudden, they're still buying their Bud Light products, and all of a sudden they'll go into the storage room and go, we have 12 cases of Bud Light. We normally have 2 at this point in time. So now is when we're about to see really how much of the boycott is. And by the way, I've heard people talk in my bar, this notion that it was a call to boycott, that's what the left always says, because they act like we're collectivists like them. No, it was just a bunch of people who said, well, this is kind of dumb. This has nothing to do with even my acceptance of trans, which would be stupid anyway for them to adopt that marketing thing. It's this clownish, lampooning character who comes on to almost make fun of women's characteristics. People are like,
if I acted like that as a woman in the business world, no one would take me seriously, and I'd get fired from both of my jobs. If I walked around it was all girly girl, no one wants. Women don't act like that. That's what makes me mad.
I don't know. I think
you guys spent 50 years trying to shake those characteristics, and now all of a sudden we're supposed to celebrate them back.
It's not
like we have sleepovers and come jump on my pink comforter in my bedroom.
Yeah, now they're men. The Brandts, Anheuser-Busch products are still being offered at Brandts. Wait, are you not down with the struggle here, Jim? Are you?
Now you're in trouble.
Getting a little squeamish.
Now we're getting to the crux of it.
Little squishy, Jim, are you?
You guys have been there. Brandts is the least squishy place on the planet.
That's true.
And you know what's so funny about Brandts too? So many of the people who we have a ton of the gay community comes to Brandts. Nobody talks about this crap that they want us to all talk about. It's just they want to make huge deals out of everything. Gay people feel perfectly welcome at Brandts. I can introduce you to 10 of them. We have lots of fun conversations too.
What about straight people? Are straight people welcome there?
Yes,
occasionally.
You're my COVID oasis. I'll
never
forget having a meal there for the first time.
I don't think the straight community is not as welcome as it used to be.
Oh, Dan is trying to be provocative, and you're being an antagonist, and I want you to stop. And I really think we should do a live remote from Brandts. Because now I'm hungry for a burger.
The ribs are good. I like the ribs.
I like the
burgers. And
the tacos.
For people who think Jim is squeamish, he powers Brandts by burning tires outside. So so he's not. It's not that bad. All right. All right. So, but wait, back to banking. So, I get that nobody has the answer. So, what's the answer? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
So the answer is this: we're at a huge inflection point that the Fed raised rates for the last time yesterday, despite the fact that they know they shouldn't. They know they have no idea how many cockroaches there are, but they raised rates just because they said they were. It's another one of those arrogance and hubris mistakes. So now all of a sudden, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to see the markets finding out which one of these regional banks has a difficult time. A credit crisis means if these banks start pulling back from lending, that's a huge rate tightening in itself that the Fed's not even involved with as the market starts to recess, which, my base case is that the recession begins within about 2 months. And by the way, the market also believes me too, because the Fed funds futures market is already saying they're probably going to ease to lower rates by the end of the summer. So, for them to do that, something has to change.
Well, but what about that? Because, I know ADP is historically way off. I don't even know why I invoke them, but I could say the same thing about the Labor Department. So if ADP is even close to right in terms of job growth in April, then it's going to run counter to what Jay Powell said. The job market is tightening up and inflation is coming down. I mean, if the number comes in at 300,000, which is what ADP has it, then it shows that the job market is still pretty hot.
No, and I will say that the job market is still reasonably tight. It's not the most unusual thing in the world for the job market to be the last thing to fall. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds too, but M2 money supply is the money growth and the actual net amount of money in the system deposited. Every time in history that's declined by more than 2%, it's associated with a depression or at least a great crisis. It's happened 4 times before now, and now the M2 money supply has come down 4%. So money is leaving the system. So you look at the labor market, and the labor market's still hot. But remember that if you have plans to hire people, if you're a big company, they don't change on a dime. You know what I mean? So it takes a long time. It's like how when the real estate market collapsed in 2007, 2008, the people who were the last to notice it were the real estate brokers, because they wanted to believe so badly that it wasn't happening. And I'm sure the hiring managers of these big companies, the same sort of thing. It's like, no, the labor market's fine. We're still going to continue with hiring. And that goes on right up until it doesn't.
Jim Iuorio, host of the Futures Edge podcast, a market analyst and proprietor of Brandts in Palatine. Jim, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
I guess, yeah.
Thank you. Excuse me. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. On AM 560. The Answer.
Balance of Nature's fruits and vegetables, changing the world one life at a time.
I really love your product. I'm 38 years old. I'm a combat war veteran, so I've been through a lot. My body's been through a lot. I did 2 tours in Iraq. So now I'm a school teacher.